Hey,
Did we figure
George.
out, did we figure out this hybrid event thing yet, Cameron? Or
I'm sure hybrid events are very easy. You just have to actually get out of your house. That's like,
exactly. Yeah.
and you have to get permission to go to the place that you want to do the hybrid event at.
Mm.
That's going to be the hard part. But George, I'm so excited. It's so good to see you again and not
Yeah.
just on a Zoom call. Wait a minute.
Right. Exactly. But hello and welcome everyone to today's show live at Epiphan. This is like episode 212 or something, some crazy number. Surprised I can count
212
that high.
million?
Yeah, 212,000 episodes. Today, we actually have a pretty exciting topic that I think everyone's going to enjoy. Hopefully, no one minds hearing the garage close on my microphone right now. Uh, so just ignore
Almost
it.
I can feel it. I feel like my
I know.
garage is opening below me right now.
I can literally feel it in my feet. But anyway, welcome everyone. Excited to see people in chat. For fun, we put up a little poll earlier to see if people were excited, and they said yes. Sonoga answered that poll saying he was excited for the show. Kangaroo says he loves his Pearl Mini. Linda saying hi from Ottawa. Anonymous saying hi. Matt Thompson saying hi. So great to see everyone. Say hi in chat if you feel like it. But always like, follow, subscribe, and all the socially things for Epiphan because we have a lot of good content, webinars, and all kinds of cool stuff. Today, though, we want to talk about hybrid events. Really, there's a lot about that. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of definitions of hybrid events, what that means to people, and we want to touch on some of that. There's a lot. There's a lot to it. So we're going to take a look at a couple of different things. I see a little note in the background, producer Cameron. Should I care at the moment?
I think for now I'm just going to talk like this so that no one can tell that
Oh,
my audio is
perfect,
out of
perfect.
sync, and then we should be
Awesome.
okay.
Amazing, amazing. So the first thing that we want to talk about is something that may lead into hybrid events. We wanted to look at some big news within the streaming broadcast community. And that news is that it was announced the other day that Sony is pulling out of NAB this year, which is only a month away, less than a month away. Um, so that's kind of a big deal in the sense that Sony is usually one of those city size booths that is a mainstay of a show like NAB. Cameron, this was always your like first step in NAB is to go visit Sony, right?
Well, we would get to NAB, pick up any beer tickets or whatever people are giving out for later in the
Of course.
afternoon, go, do a couple of swing bys, check out some stuff. But it was always like straight to the back corner. You'd have to push by the guys waiting in line to talk to the folks from B&H, and you'd just check out the new Sony stuff. And like it was always busy. The Sony booth
Yeah.
was always busy. It was always like 10 or 15 people back. It was always busy. I should mention my audio might be a little bit out of sync. That's why I was covering my mouth. So I've done a little bit of adjustments on it. But if anyone's noticing, if they want to give me a rough estimate on if I need to go any further back or further forward, that we get to know. But yeah, this one for me, and I think I saw something from Gary from Video Guys too, was that it was like super, super surprising to hear this, right? From Sony, kind of one of the big players you'd say at NAB. So
Yeah.
for me, definitely a shock.
Yeah, and so it's kind of interesting, to kind of look at that, and is this just the first of bigger companies that are going to announce this? Like, I don't know. Like, we're almost coming down to the wire. I know there have been a number of smaller companies that have announced this. One of them that's kind of a foot in both camps is our friends over at PTZ Optics and Stream Geeks, where I believe they've decided that their main company booth for PTZ Optics they're not going to staff, but they've been tasked with an amazing thing as part of NAB to essentially make NAB a hybrid event, and that is they have this Stream Geeks upcoming coverage of NAB. And I'm going to need to find that link here quickly and show that. But they have a bunch of packages that people can use, and we're certainly hoping to participate with them in some form with that as well, just for fun, honestly, because they're gonna be live streaming the whole show, right? Like that's we just want to be a part of that because it's cool,
Well, and
and we're good friends
they're
with
going
them.
to corner the market on that now, right? Because obviously, with attendance being low, with it being limited to folks, I think only still in the United States, right, for attendance to NAB.
Largely,
Like
that's all they're
international,
expecting anyway.
yeah.
So it's interesting. We'll have to see and how things go. But yeah, on the NAB website, there's a whole list of what is going to be possible through Stream Geeks and them in terms of booking. So if anyone's interested in what they're going to be doing, check that out. They have some cool stuff, including exhibitors can rent these solo Cinebot things, which is totally insane, cool thing that maybe we'll have to look at that in a whole other show unless I can pull it up quick here. But um, the other
Oh
thing
yeah,
that's
we're supposed to have the links for that, George. I
I
totally
know,
dropped the ball. I totally
yeah,
dropped the
I
ball on
forgot to
that.
pull those up. Maybe we'll circle back to that. But I'll mention another
There it
hybrid
goes.
event, and this is certainly not a new one. This is one that's coming next week, and this is something that is, you know, I think we've used these as examples of hybrid events in the past.
Mhm.
Apple's next big reveal is next week on the 14th. They're going to be talking about new phones, of course, and new Apple Watches, of course. But these have always, over the years, not even in the past year and a half, 2 years, but even previous, these have become maybe the prime example of what a hybrid event would be, in the sense that, you have a live stream of what's going on, you have maybe limited press that's there in person,
We
and
get to control your audience, right?
well, that's part of it. But I mean, you'll get a million
Control your in-person
people,
audience.
yeah, but you'll get a million people watching the live stream,
Mhm.
and watching the live stream and live blogging the live stream for people who can't watch the video, just want to read it on Twitter or whatever. So this is
Well, and
kind of,
Apple's really done this for years, right? Like
yeah,
Apple keynotes. And George, I know you're a huge Apple fan, so you're going to agree with me when I say that, they don't only kind of set the tone for products and user experience in general, but when it comes to presentations, they are sexy and they do kind of set the bar, right? Like you see Steve Jobs up on a big black stage with a big, huge presentation behind him,
yeah,
and years later, that's what everybody is doing. So I think they're kind of setting the tone and setting really what's available and what the expectations are. And when it comes to engagement and just like how they do just tap into that fan base,
mm-hmm.
they really have to make this work because they want to get people online watching it, getting in line for these products and experiencing it. And I think they are definitely the ones to watch when it comes to this real kind of bleeding edge of these hybrid events and how they should work.
Yeah, and I mean, basically everybody's followed that. Google does it, Samsung does it, everybody does it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I did notice about this event in particular that was really interesting was even this splash screen, even naming the event California Streaming is literally what they're calling this event. That's different. And to me, I think that does suggest that they recognize where the audience is for these events now, and they're
Mm-hmm.
even buying into that with even their naming convention. So I'm really curious to see. They don't do these things accidentally. There's a rhyme and reason why they do it. So I'm really curious to see. Again, I'm such a huge fan of Apple products that I'm not going to watch this at all, and I really don't care what they announce.
uh,
But I
I
am.
was hoping we could talk about like the new Apple iPhone satellite or the new satellite
Debunked.
iPhone, but
Yeah, yeah,
unfortunately
no.
that was debunked.
Yeah, that was
But no,
debunked.
that pun was intended, man. Like
There's something
California
going on
streaming,
there. So
absolutely intended.
I'm more curious of what they're going to get out of this than
Do you think
anything
that
else.
like they're gonna be pointing their products towards something that's gonna have anything more to do with live streaming? Like obviously eyesights, and I'm not using mine right now on my computer, but you know, the built-in cameras for Macs and iPhones have always been geared towards making a better FaceTime experience and
Yeah,
better experience on Zoom. And if you can, obviously we have seen where you can use entire studios out of a phone, right? You could
yeah,
produce an entire show just on your phone or on a mobile device. So
yeah. No, it's
maybe
it's
there's
going
something
to
there.
be it's going to be really interesting to see, where it goes, where it takes everything. Right. It's going to be fascinating. And yeah, it should be interesting. Again, I'm curious to see what are they going to do that's new, right? Like that's ultimately kind of the the cool thing of what are they going to do that's new. Um,
Now, not only Apple and other big technology companies are using live streaming these days, but George, tell us about another organization, another group. How much are we tiptoeing around this? Obviously, we have to say something, but there's like another group that's using live streaming really effectively right now. Let's talk about that as our next story on here.
Yeah, so for the non-Canadians in the chat, you may or may not be aware that we are in the middle of a federal election here in Canada, which is always a good time, especially in a pandemic. But
What? Was that sarcasm? No.
and this is not taking a political stance whatsoever. However, disclaimer, blah blah blah. We are not. These are not the opinions of Georgia Cameron or Epiphan. These are streaming.
No, no, no.
Streaming
These are our personal opinions, and they do not reflect the opinions of Epiphan. Uh, Yada yada.
In any case, I actually think that this is an amazing story. I think it's really cool. One of the federal parties here in Canada is using live streaming and virtual town halls extremely successfully. And essentially, it was them looking at it, and we have this great article here, looking at it and going, hey, you know what? We're trying to do an election campaign in a pandemic. Maybe we should not be shaking hands and kissing babies. Maybe we should just be making ourselves available online, doing online events. And apparently, it's extremely successful. Shocker. People like to watch stuff online. You know, what have we always been saying, Cameron? Like, if you want to create content, put it where your audience is. Well, guess where the public is? They're on social media. And
Yeah,
you
exactly.
can
And
put the
they're at
information
home,
there.
right? We've been told for months, stay at home, don't go out into big spaces, don't go into groups. So this is a real natural fit. And even like in a non-pandemic
Yeah,
year, this kind of engagement makes a lot of sense. You're not flying across the country, you're not burning gas, you're not, shaking
exactly.
babies
And
and kissing hands or whatever you said, right? Like,
yeah, well, other parties have leveraged TikTok very successfully as well. Maybe not a hybrid event, so didn't want to highlight that one too much in this case. But again, using social media. Other parties are just flying around getting rocks thrown at them. But this type of thing, to me, speaks of the future. So we actually wanted to take a deeper dive into this. And again, this has nothing to do with actual politics and everything to do with technology. That's what we want to look at here.
and we're going to call this new segment. Sorry, George, my cueing is terrible. I got a little rusty at this. And we're going to call this In the Depths.
Okay, that's a new one. All right, all right. In
Like
the
that.
depths.
I was trying to do like a
Yeah,
little scuba diver or something
yeah.
too,
You
but
came up with that 5 minutes before the show, didn't you?
I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you're talking about. Everything's all prepared far in advance.
But yeah, we did want to deeper dive on this and pick it apart a little bit. So, in that article I had up earlier, you saw a shot of Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole sitting at a desk in this thing. It kind of looks like a standard media shot, but we wanted to take a little deeper look at what they're doing. And we have a few shots we're going to show. One is from that article on CBC, which you did and post in the chat. Basically, what they've done is they have created a temporary studio space. Now, in this case, they're using a hotel ballroom that they've rented and set up this honestly wonderful looking studio space, minimized the amount of people and the amount of equipment they need, and then they just do press conferences, virtual town halls, call-in shows, announcements, everything from
Well,
this
they've made
one
it
set.
looks like this could be the set of the National, right?
Yeah.
So, again, for our US watchers, our international viewers, that's our kind of our flagship news show, or my flagship news show, I should say, every week or every day. And, it's a very professional looking space. It's well lit, right? I mean, it looks good. It looks like
Yeah.
it could be up on Parliament Hill, right? I think even the background is
We have this
changeable.
behind the scenes shot here that we managed to find somewhere where you can see the teleprompter, the podium for more of that press conference style. But again, adjust the lighting a little bit. So, was this a cheap studio to build? No. But I bet you it costs less than flying across the country a couple times.
Well, and, we talked about how inexpensive this would have been as a solution for a studio space, but who's having a convention in a hotel right now?
Nobody.
Who's renting a ballroom, right? Like
Nobody.
these kind of spaces where you already have a kind of a built-in infrastructure, good power. It's probably getting some catering out of the restaurant even, right? For craft services, that's a big deal when it comes to these
Yeah.
productions. You got multiple people on set. But like, this is a great space, and it's not a studio, so it's not somewhere that they had to create it all from scratch. And they've got a few flats in there for the background. So it looks really good. And something we should point out too, the screenshots, and I think when we're going to take a look at the YouTube clip, so if you want to pull that up, we can kind of start breaking that down a little bit too and look at it kind of shot by shot in our deeper dive here. Is the fact that they're able to pipe in participants from
Yeah.
other spots. So, it's not just Aaron O'Toole, it's not just the conservative leader sitting at a desk talking to someone who's in the room with him. They do that on top of having call-in people. They have folks that are appearing on the screen. So they have the shot that George has
Giant
of now
screen.
showing that big screen.
Yeah, that giant screen means they can bring in people from Zoom or whatever, or play clip packages or whatever it might be. It's an incredibly flexible space, and as Anonymous said in chat here, it's pretty nice for a temporary set.
Absolutely.
And I agree. And it's so simple. It's two walls and a floor. Like, I mean,
Well, they've
that
also
is,
been doing press releases, right? So I think you
yeah,
said that press
yeah,
releases and announcements, and these are so this has to be a space that also facilitates the fact that a news organization can come in and either set up their own camera and have connectivity or have access to it in a safe way. Now, obviously, it's got to be safe, so they're facilitating that too because they're
yeah.
sending these signals out or they're having people come in. We're assuming a lot, we're guessing a few things here and there, but
We are, and to be quite honest, this is something that we've been trying to find someone who can get us the inside edge so we can get in there and look at it behind the scenes in person because we know that it is here in Ottawa. We just don't know exactly which hotel and who would give us permission to go in. So if anyone in chat has an inside scoop, you let us know.
well, if
But
anybody's watching and trying to decide to let us use the clip in this footage or not after we've streamed, please get in touch because we're impressed. We just want to
yeah,
know. We're geeks about this stuff. We want to get in there and kind of figure it out, right?
exactly.
Like we're really excited about it.
So this is the results. This is one example. They've done many of these, but this is one example of a virtual town hall that they did. This was broadcast live on YouTube. Virtual town hall, meaning it was a call-in show. What viewers could call in. And they've broken it down into some segments that make it really good, right? They have some pre-roll that runs, whatever. They jump to a one-up intro speech. You could see they have a little ticker along the bottom. They have this numbering system for the call-in guests, I think, to queue them and protect it as well. Um, they have, in this case, they had a guest join as a in person there, so they had two people. So they essentially have a three camera setup, right? The one up on one person, the one up on the other person, and then they have a two up shot. That's dead
And
simple.
these shots are, I think, like because we scrubbed a lot of material on their YouTube channel, a lot of these
Yeah,
live streams. They've done several of these town halls, right? It wasn't just the first one the other day, but these angles are static. They've got the logo on the floor, obviously the perfect framing for the desk and everything. So these
yeah,
are great shots. I think we had talked about maybe giving a little bit of critique. I would like to see
yeah,
a little bit of motion in some of these shots, right? Even if you've got just a camera that's slowly panning back and forth in a wider shot, I think that would add some
yeah.
value to
Might
this,
go a
especially
little
for this static shot here.
bigger screen here and see. We wanted to critique this a little bit because a lot of this honestly looks very good, but there's a few things here that I think could be done better. So when we look at this, the ticker is cool, right? Tickers are always cool, but I'll be honest.
Well, and they rendered the legs, which is great because we see a lot of the time you may just not even include the legs in there. So I'm glad they rendered those out.
Right, exactly. But I mean, Cameron, as a producer, based on what I saw scrubbing through this, they probably only need one person to run this production. They're
Absolutely.
just cutting between three cameras. That's it. Super simple. Now they probably have some other crew that are handling the call-in people, piping in the audio and helping with that side, and obviously moderation. But that doesn't have to be done on site. Now, visually though, the lighting, they nailed it. Especially gentleman is bald, so that's always a challenge with lighting. Nailed it. They've done the best they can. I would argue he's probably not heavily make-upped, which is also impressive. If this was actually run by news media, they would have so much makeup on your face, it'd just be disgusting.
Well, he would
Um,
come out with little pieces of tissue still hanging off his collar,
exactly.
pulling those out.
Um,
A really good comment actually from Anonymous again, and I'm sure George, you're probably going to tackle this one in a second, but that font and the size of the real estate on there, like that one doesn't feel like it's,
right.
that one does feel a little bit large, and I think only because it's not as readable, right? Like if
Well,
we're
and
gonna have a
that's where
ticker
I'm
go
gonna.
across, I want to have more readability there.
Yeah, and that's where. So honestly, it's the lower third that I have all of my complaints about here. First is, yeah, the ticker is there, it's huge, and quite
Mm-hmm.
honestly, is not displaying very useful information. There's really nothing in there that's valuable. If it was rolling, how do you call in? How do you do? Cool, but it doesn't. It just runs a bunch of honestly nonsense that really doesn't matter. It's not that relevant because he already said it verbally, so who cares?
Well, and it's
Um,
also taking you so long to read it because it's so
so
slow
slow.
that you're not, now I'm not paying attention to what they're saying and I'm kind of missing
Exactly.
that. So yeah, that you're right. You're right. It's a little bit
Right. And ticker announcing live you're with the leader. Yeah, I know that. That's why I tuned in. Like I don't need you to tell me that. Um,
that's actually one thing that's missing. Where's the live bug, right? Like you
right.
like to see live bug on there. You don't often see that. It's a little live bug in the top.
But
Obviously, the
speaking of bugs,
content management
no,
will have.
that's another gripe that I have, right? Is like they've designed this and they have this logo as part of the lower third bug. But because it was on YouTube, they also have this card bug to get you to subscribe to the channel. But visually that ends up when you watch this video, you see that logo on the left and the right hand side. That's unnecessary and distracting, quite frankly. It was one of the first things I noticed when I looked at the video. It was like, why are there two logos? And it was just kind of annoying. Um, this piece up at the top, this numbering system, uh, you know, it's cycling through things. That's great. There's obviously some coded system to help with their moderation. That's great. That's subtle, out of the way, not distracting. So
Well,
that
and I
part's
thought
great.
because we first looked at this obviously after it was live, we didn't watch it live, but I looked back on it just to see was there more instruction at the beginning, and
Yeah,
there was a little bit at the beginning, but that wasn't reiterated. It's kind
right.
of a critique of the actual, like, I guess the structure of the stream itself, just to
Yep,
have those little pit stops to remind people how to call in or leave
exactly.
comments.
Like we pit stop and say comment in the chat.
To be fair, like I didn't scrub the entire thing. It was 2 hours
No,
long, which like in its it was 2 hours, right? It was or an hour and
it's an
26 minutes.
hour. Yeah,
Hour
it's an hour and a
26
half.
minutes. Which is
But
great. Like town halls, you could have a
uh,
town hall that might be like 30, 40 minutes long, and that's in person.
well, exactly. And I think that's another thing that I think is a big advantage of this, right? And this is an argument that has been made over the years in terms of, the value of having long form podcasts, especially video podcasts, that long form conversations, people will tune into them. We've been told for decades that you can't do that. It's got to be 15 seconds in and out. That's bogus. That's not true. People want long form conversations. They're tired of traditional news media trying to jump in there, hammer you with a couple of sound bites, and jump out because it's
Mhm.
not constructive. It doesn't actually answer anything. You just end up in a fight between the interviewer trying to nail their points and the person being interviewed trying to push back and still get their points across. And at the end of the day, you end up with nothing of substance. Direct long
Absolutely.
form conversations like this evidently is, or it's, I'm sorry, but it's one of the reasons why the Joe Rogan podcast is so popular, is because it's 3 hours long of a long form conversation with someone, right?
Is he okay? Did he make
Oh,
it? Did he pull through that?
that. um,
I wasn't sure. I
so,
kind of I wasn't aware of his centaur origin, so I was a little bit concerned when I
but
read the news there.
we mentioned that another party has been leveraging TikTok, right? That's cool, but TikTok is what, 15 to 30 seconds, and that's it, right? You're not. What are you actually delivering in there? I would argue nothing. I'm not a TikTok user, although they did just surpass watch time with teenagers over YouTube. But to me, there's nothing of substance there because it's just too short, right? Um,
Well, I think they are short, but are you considering the longer kind of impact of some of this messaging, right? Like they're little short bits, and that's about as much attention as I can give to something. But maybe I look at it 3 or 4 times a day, 12, 16 times a week, 100 times a week, whatever. So like it kind of, it's like a cumulative, right? It's a cumulative
Look, I would
content.
argue that anything of substance deserves time, and that if you actually are delivering something of substance, people will tune in for it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my thing. I you know I have a low attention span the same way anybody does my generation or younger, but at the same time, especially if I'm talking about politics or a subject matter that's incredibly important to me, like NAB and talking about broadcast stuff, right? As a callback to what we were saying earlier, I want it to be long form and I want it to be high quality. So, what these guys have delivered visually looks amazing. They're delivering a long form, they're delivering active participation like we try to do with our viewers here as much as we can through chat. Um, to me, that's nailing it. And we pulled up that article earlier. It's very clear that the data they're getting says this strategy is working. Uh, to me,
Okay, so George, you make a really good point there, and something that we passed over a little bit because we're talking about
yeah.
production value and cameras and craft services and stuff. But data, data is a very valuable component of this, right? You
Mm-hmm.
do it online, and there are people who are anonymously online and kind of don't maybe reveal who they are,
Mm-hmm.
so they can attend these things and have some kind of anonymity. But a lot of people, I'll log in with my Facebook page. I've got nothing to hide. I'll log into my Google account. I don't care. So like now they've got these folks, instead of being an anonymous person who came to a town hall in person, who, unless you're going to grab them and say, who are you, show me your identification,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Which is not the kind of town halls we have in this country currently. But you can have this happen. You can get their information. You can follow up with them.
Yeah.
Maybe they said they were going to watch and they didn't tune in. Now you can target them and send them this stuff after. So like, no, I'm talking about this Linda Boonstra. It's
Yeah.
obviously an alias on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, that's a very valuable thing, which we know from our webinars, right? So
Exactly.
folks that attend our webinars, we're going to follow up with them, make sure that they
Yeah.
got the content they needed. If they have more questions, they can contact us too. So
And I think the other thing here is that, and this isn't specifically about just this example, but this is talking about hybrid events as a whole, right? Because that's the overarching message we're trying to get to. Hybrid events, I think, and we've been saying this for a year plus, there is a future in hybrid events, even once pandemic is ancient history and we're not even thinking about it anymore, and all the things surrounding it are just no one even cares anymore, because it's a new audience, it's a new way of reaching people. And as Anonymous mentioned there, the cost of doing this town hall online is likely a fraction of trying to run an in-person event, given travel, security, and even then, those in-person events are a fraction of the time, right? Like you get 30 minutes tops, kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
This is game changing, not just for politics. Although I would argue that especially any politician, wants to take a platform of green and worrying about the environment. This should be their first step, to not just fly back and forth across the country, burning all kinds of fuel. Just do it online. It's cheaper and better for the environment. So
I'm laughing because Anonymous, again, good call. You need good call screeners and a delay switch.
absolutely.
I had my like George is getting into the politics. My button here, I've
Mute button.
George's
Yeah,
politics button. Kill the stream.
trying very hard to stay in line here. But
You can be more. Yeah, you can be more right.
but that's just it. It's hybrid events in some form, and of course, hybrid events have many different definitions, right? This is a hybrid event. The Apple stuff is a hybrid event. There's true hybrid events over things like Zoom that your kids may have done in school in the past year.
Absolutely.
All of these qualify as hybrid events, and we're actually going to be taking a deeper dive into that. So, Cameron, if you want to meet me in the kitchen for a moment.
I almost ran my in the depths one here.
Oh,
Let's hit
in the depths of the kitchen. Uh,
and then from
uh,
this
we
extremely
actually, this is not intentional. It just worked out the way we were looking at content. But next week, we actually have a webinar coming up on September 15th, all about hybrid event production and the 3 steps to success. So if you do want to learn more about this, then I would
Did you
tune
say
into
it's
that
not a
webinar.
coincidence? Because I thought we engineered that quite
No,
intentionally.
no, 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 no. Totally coincidental. Uh, but that webinar, I mean, it's exactly in line with what we're talking about here. Like, how do you deliver this? We've been critiquing their stream, and I think that there's a lot good and a lot that's not great. But overall, I would say it's above A for effort there. I can't wait to see what happens during NAB in terms of hybrid people attending various forms there. Curious to
Okay,
see.
have you looked at any of those online virtual attendance offers
Oh
from
man,
NAB? Like, have you been checking any of that stuff
have
out?
you seen the Cinnabot thing? This is calling all the way back to the beginning,
I
but
love Cinnabon. I can't go to the mall
no, not
without. Oh,
Cinnabon,
Cinnabon.
Cinnabot.
Ah,
So
well, yeah, these guys look pretty
during
cool.
NAB, you can rent one of these rigs to bring it to your booth to do your product announcements or whatever you want to do. This thing is this crazy flight case, camera, audio, light thing all in one box that you can deploy. It's like robotic and stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy.
That is so cool.
Um,
That deserves a Matthew McConaughey. Wow, wow.
exactly.
Can you play the video? Actually, I think there's is there a
Uh,
little clip on here,
where was
right?
it? It might have been on their homepage. Let's see if we can pull that up. But this thing is pretty crazy. They make some bold claims about it. You can see they got all these pieces, this mini studio interviewer robot thing in a box. They have a few different models that go different heights. And here's this video that they
Now, does
had.
that okay? I'm going to steal this from what you said earlier, but that reminds me of something. That image there with the young lady in the seat, and she's leaning back, and the
Yeah,
Cinnabot
yeah.
is in front of a
Yeah, call back to an old advertising campaign of days
RCA.
gone
Is it
by.
RCA?
But like, look at this. Look at this thing.
That's so
This thing's
cool.
pretty cool. So now think about this. Like, let's tie these things together, right? Let's say you don't have a hotel ballroom and you don't have a couple $1,000,000 to build a cool set. Okay, cool. You could rent this for a week for not that much money and run whatever it is that you need to run in whatever space that you have without necessarily owning the gear, putting it wherever you need to put it. I think this is pretty cool. This is interesting. So if people want to check out the Solo Cinebot, solocinebot.com. We have no
Well, and of course, if
affiliation with
you
them whatsoever, but
yeah,
uh,
exactly, and use promo code
yeah,
GOHERP
exactly.
2021 to book your next rental. And this one, you said obviously you could produce probably an entire town hall from a
Easy.
device like this, but
Good.
it's also going to be to the benefit for the receiving end of the town hall.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at some of this next week, but maybe you've got remote contributors who are sending their signals in, and they don't have to have the setup. They can set up with one of these and then beam their signal in, right? And
Yeah.
it's with a bonded LTE signal, right? Like
Yeah.
bonded cellular on there we saw, but
They have that
yeah,
as an
very cool.
option. Yeah, there's a bunch. So, of course, this isn't the only game in town. There's lots of companies that are building this kind of stuff, and it's not that hard to build your own kit like this either. And it would be a lot less expensive. Uh, you could easily
Well, and
use.
what we've learned from the past year, and because we have a studio space in our Ottawa office,
Mhm.
the hardest part is getting people on site, right? Like that is the hardest part. If you can ship a box, if you can hide someone in the box, that's great. But like, if you can have a camera and a monitor in there, that's your whole production just is right there, and you're not worried about the COVID test, the staff, the potential exposures, right? It's I think it's a very smart way to go.
So, to borrow a phrase from our friends over at Linus Tech, segue to our sponsor. Our sponsor being Epiphan Video. Shocker. And we did actually release a firmware update earlier this week for the Pearl Nano. Some of you may be familiar with the Pearl Nano. We released version 4.14.3, which really adds dynamic scaling to the layout editor. So anybody who's using Nano and noticed and kind of found it a bit clumsy to do it manually, and now you can do it dynamic just like all the other Pearls. The reason I mention that, and the reason to segue to that sponsored spot, is that you could build a box like these Cinebot things with a camera, some audio, and a Pearl Nano and have someone remotely control it. And it'll
Absolutely.
cost you a heck of a lot less than that Cinnabot Solo thing. So, I mean, hybrid events, right? The all circles back to that. You can set up some incredible hybrid events with minimal gear, minimal on site operation, and create fantastic content and ultimately put it where your audience is. And if you happen to be a politician, your audience is online and social media talking about you anyways, so you might as well reach them there. Um,
Is
so
Sonoga, is he one of our Pearl Nano users or is he a Pearl Mini user? Can you remind me?
I don't recall. Sonoga, if you're in chat, maybe clarify for us. I know you own a Pearl. I just can't remember which model it is at the moment. Um,
Yeah, because I think he was hitting us up a couple of weeks ago telling us about his experience with the Pearl Mini and
oh
or the
man,
Pearl Nano, one of his Pearl products. But yeah,
I can't
he reached one
wait.
person to update their firmware, and we do
I
it.
can't wait to share with you and with our audience, hopefully in the not too distant future, an amazing example of using pearls in a hybrid event. We're working on trying to get permission to do a use case study on this, but it'll blow your mind. I know because it's all the things you love, Cameron. Pearls and SRT and all kinds of stuff. It's incredible, and I hope we can talk about it in the not too
Complicated
distant future.
workflows.
But it's not. That's the beauty of it. They're way anyway. It's good. That's another example of a hybrid event. And if we get the okay to talk about it by next week's webinar, I'm gonna bring it up. So you might want to tune into that webinar just for that portion. And
Yeah,
Snugger
your
confirmed.
tongue must be sore from having to bite it. That is a
Oh,
juicy
dude,
a juicy one. It would be
it's
awesome to share that.
such a good one. Snugger confirmed in chat he does have a Nano. So yeah,
Oh,
um,
okay, so perfect. Sonoga, update your firmware,
yeah,
and then
exactly. Then you can
we'll
go
have
boop, boop,
reached
boop in the
one
corner.
firmware update through the live show. That'd be great.
I updated mine yesterday. Um,
Well, and we were
anyway,
going to take a look at the. We're actually going to share a screen and do a little walkthrough. But we do have a explainer video up, so
yeah,
please check that out. It's also on the firmware page too, so that'll give
yeah.
you a little bit of an idea of how it works. And if you're familiar with other Perl functionality, if you own other Perl products, it brings it right back in line with that on the layout editor side.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that'll wrap it up. I mean, if anyone has any questions or comments in the chat, feel free to throw them in there. What do you think about the future of hybrid events? We'd love to hear from you on that. Have you participated in any hybrid events, and how did you feel about it? What did you like or dislike? You know, again, nothing to do with supporting any given political stripe, but what do you think about this strategy that they've undertaken to try to reach out instead of jet setting around the world, spending huge amounts of money and jet fuel for nothing? Like, is this a better approach? Is this the future of politics and events in general? I mean, I kind of think it is, or maybe should be. Um,
Well,
you
and we
know,
could do a whole other episode on kind of earlier this year with the leadership conventions and
yeah,
where different parties had success and where they completely failed with trying to put this stuff online. And
yeah,
I was surprised actually with some of the commentary from some of the big news organizations just panning what they were doing, and you could hear
yeah.
recordings of people getting frustrated because they couldn't contribute. So you do it right, it's great. You do it wrong, and it's like doing anything wrong. It's gonna be to the detriment of your brand, to your message.
But
So
the
you want
biggest
to get
thing
it
about
right.
the example we showed here, right, is that because they've taken it under their own control to run these town halls. In the past, you would have had to wait for whatever news organization to book a space and get a bunch of people there and get a town
Correct.
hall and get a moderator to sit there and curate the whole thing. Nah, you don't need to do that. You can take the power, the democracy, into your own hands and do it. And now I'm going to get off my
Uh,
soapbox and
I
we'll
want to
launch
actually, you know what? I should
into our
make a
wrap up.
clip that I can play on demand with Michael Schultz saying the democratization of video. That's,
Exactly. That's what
I
it's
love
all
that.
about. That's what it's
Love
all
that
about.
clip.
Anyway, I
Uh,
think that's where we're going to call it today. Thanks, folks, for watching. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe in all the places: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn,
all the things
Instagram,
linked. Yeah,
not
make sure to
TikTok.
actually, well, no, you got to find George on TikTok. He's George.59
Yeah, good
on
luck.
there. And
I,
if you want to get in touch, if you're watching this VOD, if we're doing something terrible and you hate us, let us know. If you actually don't let us know. If you have any great ideas for upcoming shows, stuff you want to see us talk about, hit us up, send us an email at info@epiphan.com. We'd love to hear from you.
yeah. Thanks, Cameron. It's been fun. It's great being on the show with you again. Hopefully we'll get to do this again soon. We might even be doing like webinars and stuff together. That'd be nice.
So I might test my sync out even in advance. We'll see.
Testing. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, George. See everybody.